please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Celebrating 16 years of Young Turks.
Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shruti Mishra. I'm at the Bombay Stock Exchange to bring you all the action from the second edition of Fintegrate Zone, a fintech thought leadership conclave that focuses on the future of fintech within India and globally. With over 100 speakers and 1,000 delegates that include startup founders, fintech experts, industry leaders and investors, the conclave not only highlights companies and technologies that are emerging and that are driving change in the banking and financial services industry, but also showcases innovations. Take a look. India's fintech sector is estimated to be $33 billion and is forecast to reach $73 billion in 2020. On the backdrop of this huge opportunity and with an aim to integrate the fintech innovation ecosystem in India, Zone Startups organized a 3-day thought leadership conclave.
Very strong network effects.
The second edition of Fintegrate Zone saw a combination of conference tracks, workshops, hackathons, startup exhibits and a grand demo day.
The theme of the conference is connect, converse and collaborate. So creating a platform which connects people, enables them to have a conversation, and we expect that collaboration would happen because that is the future of the fintech industry. Cumulative value of contracts signed in the first edition was about 9 crores. So which is a good hit rate or good success story, we can say. While Ajay hopes to see greater success this time around, we caught up with Sujit Narayanan of Tez by Google to know how it's differentiating from competition. Now, Google Tez has already touched over 14 million users and has processed, I believe, over 250 million transactions, accounting for over 70% of all the transactions on Bheem and UPI in the country. You've also diversified into merchant payments after generating strong volume growth in peer-to-peer payment space. Tell us, what is your take on competition, especially with now WhatsApp Pay coming in? How are you different from Paytm Bank and the other wallets?
See, we look at competition as a welcome sign, right? If you actually look at the journey which India needs to undertake to move from cash to digital, right? I don't think it's going to be done by a single player. It's the beginning of a 100-mile journey. We are perhaps at the, the first mile right now of actually having a product in the market. My sense is that it's going to take a couple of years, for instance, for someone to even aspire to a slight leadership position in this space.
There's been over 400% rise in the average ticket size transaction on Google Tez, and it's now getting used for rent payments, splitting of restaurant bills, etc. And I believe to just encourage and to promote such usage, Google has also recently tied up with over 70 utility billers to introduce bill payments on its app.
So we've gone live right now with 90 billers.
Okay.
Right? These are utility companies, these are DTH providers, mobile companies, for instance. But our idea is to get more and more companies to come in and enable them to also converse with consumers. Yeah. For instance, how do you simplify the act of paying your telephone bill, right? Rather than sending an SMS, is there an opportunity where they can chat with you and give you an update of your bill? So it virtually becomes a one-click experience for you to make a payment. That's the approach that we've actually taken to something as simple as paying your bills.
Take us through some of the other initiatives that you plan to roll out to create habit and increase stickiness amongst users.
Our core idea is to actually drive the average transaction size lower, not higher. Because if you think about your daily life, for instance, right, the number of times that you'll make a payment above 2,000 rupees is actually infrequent.
Yes.
But the number of times that you make a payment of 100 or 200 rupees is actually going to be substantially higher.
Yeah.
Right? So we're trying to tackle this by providing users with the comfort of paying rent.
Okay.
For instance, at the high end of
it, yeah.
But at the same time, focus on proximity, tap and pay kind of experiences for low ticket size transactions, right? It'll be beautiful, for instance, if you could actually pay your neighborhood store or an auto driver or someone like that for a 50 rupee payment, right? Yeah. We're focused on that from a consumer experience and a simplicity perspective. You'll see a lot more deeper integrations with merchants, for instance, coming in the next 60 days.
Yeah.
The second is that we focused on languages, right? If you actually look at it, the app works in 8 languages, and we spend a lot of time in simplifying the language. Tez today is being used in 2 lakh villages, towns across India.
Okay.
Right? Now that caught us by surprise as well, just to understand the kind of reach that it already has. It's not an urban phenomenon. So more than 60% of our transactions are outside the top 7 or 8 cities.
I have with me a distinguished name in the electronic and retail payment systems in the country. He's also the chairman of Payment Council of India, Naveen Surya. Naveen, many thanks for joining us. Now, of course, last year you stepped down as managing director from its card. There were reports of you starting up your second venture in the fintech space. You know, have you zeroed in on something, and how soon can we expect something to launch?
Actually, some things, not just something.
Okay.
This time I'm also focusing on a few verticals in fintech. So verticals are like credit. Right?
Okay.
You have cryptocurrency, you have things like, let's say, housing finance, you have things like mutual fund investments. So interestingly, each of these segments in a fintech, the penetration in India, other than banking, is so low.
Yeah.
There is a ton of opportunity in next 20 years, not just 10.
Yeah.
Right. A few things I've already started. I recently got associated with a housing finance company. That's more of an advisor, but I think it's a good learning for me as well. So
we'll keep a watch on that. Let's talk about the big launch that cooked up a storm, you know, WhatsApp Pay, and the whole controversy around it getting preferential treatment. However, the NPCI later came and said that, you know, obviously it has to adhere to norms once WhatsApp Pay is like fully operational. What is your take on the debate that raged with Vijay Shekhar Sharma lashing out on the unequal footing between Indian and foreign players?
I think it's more exciting news than the real content. Let me put it this way. Let me be more blunt. My own experience has been that they have been flexible to every player within the defined risk that they have. They always work through banks where the rules are always clearly defined. Banks have to adhere through that rule, whoever they are. So I would say let's all get matured. We are all matured people. I think it's a large enough market. I don't think we need to get into this duel just now, unless you want to keep media busy.
All right, let's move from controversies to something more constructive. The Union Budget 2018 mentioned that a special committee will be made for the fintech sector, and also that the government will proactively look at using blockchain as a payment ledger. You know, let's talk about the first part, a special committee being set up. Are you on that committee? And also, you know, what are some of the issues that you would like to be sorted out quickly for the fintech sector to really flourish in India?
The challenge for us as a country and even committees, and yeah, I mean, I've been lucky to be part of some of those committees, but increasingly I'm seeing that findings in most of these committees are very consistent over the last 10 years.
Okay.
The real new content, and I'm being very blunt, the new content is probably less than 20%. It's 80-90%, same thing being carried forward. Maybe we are saying it differently.
Yeah.
The fundamental issue is how does it get finally executed? Who has accountability to execute it?
Yeah.
And it keeps falling between, let's say, certain policy departments in government versus regulators, and there's a ping pong. And the recent example that you mentioned, cryptocurrency, is another example. Yeah. Whether we like it or not, I think there are two types of cryptocurrencies. Privately issued, government-backed. I don't think any government has yet talked about it, but not yet issued. Right? Indian government is still to decide what they will do about it. Yeah. Private ones are already out there. It's already over 2 decades that they exist, whether we like it or not, right? My belief is that concept and this is likely to exist. Not that I'm favoring in any way anything about speculative part of those currencies and the risk that it comes with, but we are sitting in BSE, right? We also know about derivatives are equally risky. Yeah. What I believe is that by not having proper regulation in place, that is the real risk than actually what is already talked about.
Already being talked about,
So we have already been continuously talking that it's high time, at least what exists, the private issued currencies, the trading and stock market, the stock trading of those currencies, the way that is happening. I think it's high time we put a proper framework in place. Yeah. Why can't we have rules? And the reality is there are enough framework available. US has it, Japan has it. There are enough countries who've already done it. So it's just the will and implementing it. That will actually prevent a lot of other issues.
You know, I want you to now talk about, you know, using blockchain at a country level. Sure. Blockchain currently is being used by a sector of people for limited case users, you know. So what do you think are some of the problems that we will run into once blockchain is rolled out pan-India?
First, we need to find a way to roll it out. There are a lot of problems first rolling it out, right? Yeah. Post rolling out, I think there's only one issue in that entire technology, which I think most of the companies are already working to refine it. Blockchain has an advantage in a real-time kind of environment, but the disadvantage is the speed. Because it works on a distributed ledger, and more ledgers, more places, more nodes it has, it takes more land record, etc., where you're not expecting so many real-time transactions hitting, or let's say real-time impact on your account or balances. You could probably run with it much faster, much easily, much quickly. Yeah. But let's say a payment kind of a scenario, where again there are huge benefits. Maybe future clearing houses on a blockchain would look completely different, right? And more at NPCI some work is happening in few more places. There's a lot of work happening. Even Visa has worked on some of these initiatives. There are huge advantages. The challenge being the speed of transactions.
In India, there is regulatory opaqueness surrounding the regulation of initial coin offerings or ICOs and other similarly placed emerging fintech products. In fact, Union Budget 2018 mentioned that a special committee will be constituted for the fintech sector and that the government will proactively look at using blockchain as a payments ledger. How these technologies will play a role in India will depend on the feasibility of their regulation and the extent of their service to financial inclusion. Take a look at this power-packed panel that discusses the role of this new fintech fad.
Blockchain is the underlying technology behind Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., but it's really at the core of it a permissionless, trustless database that hot syncs across multiple systems or nodes. So blockchain and crypto, are they the same thing? Are they tightly knit together?
So like in our conventional technologies, we use probably a data.
Are they the same thing? Are they tightly knit together?
So like in our conventional technologies, we use probably a data center or a cloud provider, pay them on a monthly basis. But what blockchain is able to do today and why it is able to create or probably promise a decentralized network is because there is a new asset which is cryptographically created, and we don't need an intermediary to control that asset. That asset is nothing else but a token. Here the concept is, in order for the value to flow back to the people who helped create the network, we need a token, and that's why they are so very well gelled together.
The question what you ask, is crypto and blockchain tightly integrated? No, it is not, right? This is only possible when you are creating a decentralized app. I just want to use blockchain technology. I'm a bank, I'm a government. I don't need cryptos. Why the hell I should go out and publish a coin? This is meant for all the gamblers. Can blockchain exist in a private permissible blockchain? Yes, it is. Probably and not. Banks are using it.
Yeah, exactly for that reason, because banks do not want to be associated with crypto. So there is a huge market opportunity in not being associated at all with crypto.
Fortune just came out with a report saying about 50% of ICOs last year have disappeared. Let's simplify. It's effectively when a company wants to raise money. In the past, it did crowdfunding, or it went to a Sequoia Capital and said, this is why you should fund me. ICOs are alternative methods where you can appeal to the large community and say, this is what I'm planning to build, and does everybody in this room want to fund me? And if you fund me, I'll give you a token from my company, and that token potentially is tradable on exchanges, multiple exchanges, right? So 50% of the ICOs have disappeared or failed. Are ICOs really a way to scam the everyday investor who doesn't know how to do due diligence? How many of you agree?
Look, I can agree on that. I mean, it's the same as in 99. I mean, you just give a big vision, the money just comes in, right? I mean, that was a big scam, 99, if you look at it retrospectively. And there were very, very few companies that made it.
You're sitting in the Bombay Stock Exchange, ask them how many defunct companies they have from all the IPOs they've done. Yeah. And I'm sure the answer is more than 50%. So at the end of the day, there is a value that comes out of this. It's a churning, you know, as they call a manthan.
The guys who can't raise money through VCs are going and doing ICOs, where there is no regulation, there is no responsibility, there is no answerability, there is no transparency. Liquidity is the biggest challenge in most of the ICOs.
I think that's a fair point, but we shouldn't be probably classifying ICOs as a scam. I mean, it's a problem that investors get scammed because of not understanding the space. But
if you're stupid, somebody will always take your money. Okay. Sure. In all the investment cycles or sort of evolutions of businesses, I have never seen a faster flight to quality than I've seen in blockchain. It's happened in 1 year, and you mark my words, in 1 more year, you will only see good quality ICOs coming out.
What is an idea, one idea each one of you have to make this a safer environment, cryptocurrencies and ICOs, for everyday investors to invest in?
So if I'm investing in a company that's focusing on blockchain, I need to see how they're going to use the blockchain and eventually build it and tokenize it. But I agree, at the moment, I'm investing in equities of companies with a view to take a reward in the form of tokens in the long term. If you look at the global leaders in the ICO regulation space, it's Switzerland and Singapore, who are the traditional leaders right now globally in fintech innovation.
Is there like a rating agency, like a Morningstar, that needs to be created?
Don't regulate blockchain, regulate through the blockchain. And you know, I'll also put in a very shameless plug here, because I think governance is one critical component which is missing from the entire space. So I think adding that governance layer, which is also built on top of blockchain and not through by a government or a regulatory body, is a critical missing element, along with scalability and security, which are perhaps really more talked about globally. So we are solving that at GovBlocks.
There are three things that I would say to your question, Satya. Number one, I do believe that there is a such thing like a knowledgeable investor in ICOs as well. But what do I mean with a knowledgeable investor? If you are sitting in a room with 50 developers, really core developers, who are challenging that kind of ICO from a pure developer point of view, and if you sit into that session, you will become knowledgeable just hearing the Q&A on that. That's number one. And if these guys invest, that's the guys you should follow on, and not the VCs or the so-called knowledgeable investors. Number two, I would definitely limit the amount of especially retail money going into it. So if you want to invest as an individual, it should be limited. Are there funds that invest in this? Yes, there are. So you can channel your money either limited directly or through funds. And the third thing is just education. And I think it's a little bit what everybody has said. You need to know everything that you invest into, but it's not fundamentally different from angel investing. You still have to know that the team is there. And I really don't think it's stoppable. I believe, I'm a payments guy. I've done 3 payments companies before, and I've invested in many. If I would redo my payments companies that I did, I would have tokenized them immediately. I think India has a huge competitive advantage across the whole world in terms of the demonetization that has been done here. There are tremendous companies going out. And if they add the tokenization part on these payments companies, those founders, they will be global winners.
Is the Indian regulator going to block this?
They will try to, but it's unstoppable. No regulator in the world will be able to control this. It's just growing crazy big.
Okay.
The regulator won't block it, in my opinion. It's just a fence-sitting stand which they've taken so far. Why I say so is because India has Aadhaar, which is like, not a lot of countries have a unique identification of that scale. The biggest problem of blockchain is identity, and India has that sorted already.
Finance Minister in the Union Budget mentioned that Amitabh Kant-led Niti Aayog will establish a national program to direct efforts in the area of artificial intelligence towards national development. Now, this is for the first time that the government has laid trust on technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning and robotics in a budget speech. Take a look at our next panel that discusses the lure and promise of deep tech. Take a look.
Today, the reason AI is becoming so relevant is because of the fact that there is so much data around, structured data, unstructured data, and as evolved businesses are dealing with a lot of data. 80% of the data out there is within corporate firewalls, right? So if you can share in your experience, right, within Crayon Data, working with your clients, how are you harnessing that data to deliver insights and deliver meaningful outcomes for the business?
I think we started looking at an enterprise user as a consumer with a persona and not a person who uses a licensed software. I think that changed the blend of data sets. In a hotel, they know about rooms, but not about events near the hotel, which are of importance to the guests who stay or the travelers who take the flight. So I think that is one of the reasons why there is so much requirement for looking at the data models in the current times in a slightly different way from the conventional enterprise data models. The second element I would say is the processing model. In the current times, it is the data which drives the model, and the model doesn't drive the data, which is to be the previous case. If I were to add a slightly more technical point, most of the methods work on one assumption or 3 assumptions in data. First, all the data is linked. Second, data is labeled. And third, it is loaded somewhere. Whoever can connect it together or compose it with methods in a box today, they will reap the benefit. That's what I would say.
So as we look at the debates out there in terms of AI taking away jobs, making it the way we work is going to be different, it also means that you need to build newer skills, right?
So one of the strange conversations we have when we go to customers, what is the hype and what value will I derive? So that's the starting point that we have. So in terms of change, what we have to do is, like one of the customers, their demand was largely, I have 24,000 branches. I want people to access data, and I can't increase my staff basically to deliver analytics to all of them. How do I use AI to do that? Now, once you frame a problem like that, you're not discussing about job losses, right? What you're in fact doing is your team size will expand. You'll be able to deliver a data-driven agenda, and it'll be very beneficial for the end users also. So you have a win-win situation for everyone.
The moment senior management is aligned with something, change management becomes little easier. However, this change management is actually less to do with the money or budget which we can put or desire. It is more to do with, like, the banks are like, very, very regulated entity, different level of audit, then regulatory audit. There are policies which are written. Whenever you are trying to do new thing, that new thing has to be evaluated on those policies. No one writes new policy before you start doing new things. Changing the whole ecosystem is a bigger challenge, I would say, than, people or the senior management or the budget or money.
With that, it's a wrap on this special edition of Young Turks. As always, write to us with your feedback, suggestions and comments to youngturks@nw18.com. Leave us a post on our Facebook page and watch out for all the news and highlights of the show on our Twitter handle as well.